Out of all the characters in the world of Sonic, Shadow stands among the rest as the most compelling. Since his debut in Sonic Adventure 2, the Hedgehog has captivated the attention of millions. In 2018, Sega Japan conducted a popularity poll asking people to vote on who their favorite character was in the Sonic franchise. Shadow only trailed slightly behind Sega's mascot. These results reveal the worldwide admiration fans have towards Shadow. The love for him is so strong that it even prompted Sega to create a game simply titled Shadow the Hedgehog. But what draws people to Shadow?
It's 'cause he's cool and edgy.
That's not wrong, but I think we can go further. It's easy to dismiss him as a brooding stereotype, a shallow attempt at creating a deep character. I think what fascinates people about Shadow is that he's a reflection of us. As great as Sonic is, he's unrealistic. Sonic is an ideal of the good triumphing over evil, of the resolve to rebel against corrupt oppression. Shadow represents struggle, the struggle to navigate the complexities of life. Whether intentional or not, Sega has created one of the best existential characters in video game history. Shadow's journey invites us to look deep within ourselves and ask the big questions of life. Who am I? And what is my purpose? So in this video, we'll attempt to explore how he strives to answer these questions and develop an insight into the worldview and philosophy of Shadow the Hedgehog. In this analysis, I will focus on Sonic Adventure 2 and Shadow the Hedgehog as the main games for characterizing Shadow. These two entries provide the most information about his character. We'll also look into the lyrics of songs from both of these games. Specifically, we'll look into the songs that are associated with Shadow. SA2's songwriting provides some of the best characterization in the series. Shadow the Hedgehog's soundtrack is, very much of the time, but still gives us insight into the mind of this character.
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
And we'll see how all this ties into the real-life philosophies of essentialism, existentialism, and Nietzsche's ideal of the Übermensch. So yeah, this video is not for the faint of heart. As you can tell, we're gonna cover a broad range of topics that are so niche and esoteric that if you do find enjoyment in them, you probably need to go outside and touch some grass. Don't lie to me, I know it's been 3 days. I know my premise sounds crazy, but I urge you to trust me and stick through the entirety of this video. I promise you by the end of it, you'll see where I'm coming from, and you might learn something about philosophy along the way. So with that being said, put on your hazmat suits, and let's jump right into it. In order to understand Shadow, we need to understand his relationship with a girl named Maria. In his debut game Sonic Adventure 2, it's revealed to us that Maria is the purpose of Shadow's life. Everything he does is because of her. Shadow and Maria grew up very close, seeing each other as family, as brother and sister. The two were born and raised in the space colony Ark, and shared a dream of one day visiting Earth. Tragically, this dream will remain but a somber memory.
Maria!
In the beginning of SA2, Shadow has amnesia and struggles to remember his past. The only memory that lingers is his friend dying at the hands of gun soldiers. For the Hedgehog, the death of Maria is a terrible reminder of humanity's cruelty. But the death of Maria also serves as the guiding principle in Shadow's life. Shadow's sole motivation was to fulfill her dying wish, which he believed was to eradicate all of humanity.
Maria, I still remember what I promised you. For the people of this planet, I promise you revenge!
Towards the end of the game, it seemed like Shadow was about to achieve this goal. He partnered with Dr. Eggman to activate the Eclipse Cannon, a literal world-destroying weapon located on the space colony Ark. But in a twist of events, the activation of the cannon instead triggered a protocol. This protocol would make the Ark descend upon the Earth and Batista bomb the entire planet. Everyone on Earth, those aboard the Ark, and Shadow himself were about to die. But Shadow's response toward the apocalypse can be met with one word: apathy. Since the beginning of SA2, Shadow has been on a path towards destruction. At the onset, it seemed that this journey was to fulfill Maria's dying wish. But as the game progresses, this motive becomes more obscure. In his final battle with Sonic, the two hedgehogs race on a long stretch of the arc. One wants to save the world, while the other wants it gone. It's a race against time to see who can best the other. Besides being a really cool fight in the game, the song that plays in the background during this battle provides us a very sobering picture of Shadow's state of mind. Listen to the lyrics of For True Story. YouTuber Slick Silver did a great job summing up my thoughts on the song. Here we see Shadow's reductionist and materialist view of reality. Stars don't twinkle, they're actually just balls of plasma suspended in space. Birds don't sing, it's just a way for their species to communicate. To the pure body, to the perfect existence. This lyric is referring to Shadow himself. He's not really a humble guy.
I'm the coolest.
To him, all the beauty that we see in nature can be stripped away by scientific explanation. And in the final verse, we hear him struggling against despair, against nihilism. In summary, nihilism is the rejection of all objective truth, and that life is ultimately meaningless. For without beauty, there can be no meaning in life. The lyrics of For True Story reveal that Shadow doesn't really believe in anything. It makes us wonder whether his search for vengeance is for Maria or for himself. Maybe he's just angry at the world and wants to get back at it, and that defeating Sonic is a way to prove his superiority. His fight against the Blue Hedgehog isn't just a physical battle, but a fight against the lack of purpose he feels in his life. To Shadow, whether the world dies or the people in it, it doesn't matter. And if he perishes along with humanity, so be it. Minutes before everyone's imminent doom, Amy runs up to Shadow, reminding him that humanity deserves to be saved, and that they need him. As Amy speaks, Shadow no longer hears her voice, but Maria's. The words uttered by Amy echoed Maria's true wish. Maria didn't want humanity to perish, but to thrive and have hope. Maria desired for the world to live the life that she and Shadow always longed for, with a new reason to fight and a single manly tear. Shadow races to fulfill his promise to Amy, and through that, Maria. Notice how I didn't say to help save the world, or to team up with Sonic and the gang. Even though Shadow does both of these things, I'd argue that these actions are just the consequences of keeping his word to Maria. Look, I'm sure he has a newfound love for the world and its people, but in my opinion, Shadow's motivation in saving the world is less about right or wrong. It's about fulfilling Maria's wish. In the end, Shadow sacrifices himself for humanity, but what's really telling of his character are his final words.
Maria, this is what you wanted, right? This is my promise I made to you.
In the end of SA2, Shadow was able to subdue his own nihilism by submitting to a new higher purpose. Maria's wish for humanity to thrive and have hope. You can view Shadow's entire character journey as him struggling with his essence. So what is essence? Well, back in ancient Greece, philosophers Plato and Aristotle defined essence as a certain set of core attributes that are necessary for a thing to be what it is. If these properties were absent, then that thing would be something else entirely. This may not be a perfect example, but think of a drinking cup. A drinking cup could be made out of glass or metal. It doesn't really matter. But if the cup didn't have some kind of basin to drink out of, it would cease to be a drinking cup because it failed to serve its function, its essence. Plato and Aristotle believed that everyone and everything had an essence, a function, a purpose, and to be a good human would be to adhere to our essence. These tenets would eventually be known in philosophy as essentialism. At his heart, Shadow has conflicting essences. Essences? I don't know. It's a fun word to say. Anyways, his origin emerged from clashing ideologies. 50 years before the events of SA2, Shadow was born as the product of a government research program called Project Shadow. Those assembling Shadow imbued within him their own desires and goals. The financiers of this operation, the United Federation government, wanted to develop a weapon of mass destruction. While the lead scientist of the project, Dr. Gerald Robotnik, hoped to create Shadow as the ultimate life form. The original intent of the research was to obtain immortality for mankind, but the doctor believed the project could lead to a cure for his terminally ill granddaughter, Maria. Before Shadow was even born, everyone had been defining his life for him. I mean, just think about his name. A shadow is amorphous and can take on different forms. Likewise, Shadow was seen as a malleable project that can fit into his creator's motives. Like how I'm trying to shoehorn Shadow's character to fit into my crazy video idea. In Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow struggles to remember his origin and clings onto Maria's dying wish as the purpose of his creation. But over the course of his life, he'll eventually let go. From my perspective, I see Shadow's character arc as transitioning from essentialism to existentialism. Shadow's character development is a reflection of how our collective perception of reality has changed. For a very long time, essentialism dominated as the standard worldview of interpreting the universe. But in the late 1800s, more thinkers decided to challenge the philosophy of essentialism. By the mid-20th century, French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre coined the motto that will represent a new philosophical outlook on the world. Existence precedes essence. This aphorism acts as the foundation for a philosophy called existentialism. For existentialists, the saying existence precedes essence means that our existence, our birth, happens first, and then our purpose or essence occurs later and is determined by us. Now, if only there was a song that perfectly encapsulated all of this. There was one song that perfectly describes Shadow. It is I Am All of Me. It's edgy, cringy, thrashes hard, but it's oddly fitting. It almost works too well for our purposes. If you listen to the lyrics, it echoes Sartre's motto of existence preceding essence. Before any given purpose or moral skew, Shadow exists first, and then throughout his life, chooses his own destiny. The self-decided morality also fits perfectly with Nietzsche's ideal of the Übermensch, which we'll explore later in this video. Existentialism asks us a question that we must all answer. If our purpose is undefined, how are we to live? This dilemma is all too human, but also all too hedgehog? I'm sorry guys. Shadow's struggle of what to do and who to be leads us to an important existential concept, angst. And being the edgy emo he is, Shadow is full of it. So what is angst? This word introduces us to what many consider to be the founder of existentialism, the emo godfather himself, Soren Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard dedicated his life teaching people how to grapple with the absurdity of existence. In his work, The Concept of Anxiety, Kierkegaard describes angst as the overwhelming anxiety one feels when choosing from a multitude of possibilities. To Kierkegaard, freedom is a terrifying weight we must all bear, and Shadow understands this weight all too well. Unlike the others in the Sonic cast, Shadow's path is undefined, and as you can imagine, this ambiguity, this crushing freedom, causes the hedgehog to have angst. In Essay 2, we see Shadow's angst in action as he struggles with these existential questions, but never does Shadow's angst consume him more than in his own starring game, Shadow the Hedgehog. This entry dives deeper into the labyrinth of his life, as players are given 10 different paths for Shadow to explore, with each path an identity to assume and a destiny to manifest. As a caveat, I have to say that the Shadow the Hedgehog video game is a Cartesian mess. It's unnecessarily complicated. This game does a poor job characterizing the Sonic cast. They pretty much undo all of Shadow's growth in Sonic Adventure 2. They also portray Sonic as a compliant Fed. You know, the guy that's all about breaking the rules and is supposed to be anti-authoritarian? Yeah, he's a cop now.
You're going to jail!
Also, we don't even know if the Shadow in the game is the real Shadow. The game reveals that he survived the finale of SA2, but the story obscures this by hinting that this Shadow could be a clone, a robot, or something else entirely. It's only during the final boss fight from Dr. Eggman's dialogue, not even a cutscene, where we learn this is the real Shadow.
Shadow, can you hear me? What I said about having created you, it was all a lie. You really are the ultimate life form my grandfather created.
Apparently, the Doctor wanted to add fuel to Shadow's existential crisis by making him think he could be a robot or a clone. You know, just for the fun of it, I guess. I don't know, man. This game is weird. Also, Shadow has amnesia again. Yay. Despite the game's flawed story, the paths the player can take to explore Shadow's past and potential future is crucial to understanding Shadow as a character. What's interesting about these paths is how they're divided into 3 categories: neutral, dark, and hero. This mechanic reveals how the game categorizes morality. The choices the player makes in each level will place Shadow on a route toward the good, the bad, or somewhere in between. This gameplay choice takes the hero and dark story routes from SA2 and blows it up until the paths look like a sad pile of Borges-style spaghetti. Now, I know some of you who have played the game are probably thinking right now,
Granny, you're being misleading. These 10 paths you keep talking about don't even matter. They're non-canonical.
and to those who say that, you're right. In case you're unaware, all the choices you would have made as Shadow are invalid. These 10 routes are just distortions of the truth. In Shadow the Hedgehog, there are actually a total of 11 paths, with the last story only being unlocked after completing the previous 10. This final path is the true canonical story of Shadow the Hedgehog. You could view this gameplay choice as a waste of time. Why would Sega force us to play through 10 routes, only for our choices to be discarded in the end? That's a valid point. I don't think it's far-fetched to believe that Sega tried forcing this storyline mechanic without thinking it through. If it's any consolation, I agree with how YouTuber Pariah views this gameplay choice. Like him, I see these 10 paths as 10 possibilities, what-if scenarios for Shadow to explore. These choices and the results that followed may not be canon, but could have still happened if Shadow had chosen a different trajectory in life. The last story is the path Shadow ultimately decides to embark on, and in typical Sonic fashion, it involves the end of the world. The whole grand finale is a physical representation of what Shadow has endured since his creation. He's literally caught in the middle of battling ideologies, commanding him what to do, telling him what he should be. But this time, things are gonna be different. Shadow is ready to unshackle himself and confront the literal monster of his past, an alien called Black Doom. So who is Black Doom? When Dr. Gerald Robotnik was developing the ultimate life form, he partnered with Black Doom, the leader of a hive mind alien species called Black Arms. As a contribution to Dr. Gerald's research, Black Doom agreed to provide his DNA in the creation of Shadow. In exchange, Dr. Gerald will deliver the 7 Chaos Emeralds to Black Doom 50 years later. These emeralds will be used by Black Doom to warp his comet and his alien army onto Earth, beginning his invasion of the planet. I guess Dr. Gerald was desperate, cause I don't know about you guys, but the name Black Doom does not inspire trust in me. Also, can we talk about the fact that Dr. Gerald literally made a deal with Space Satan to try to obtain eternal life? Bad idea. So yeah, Shadow moves forward to fight his space daddy? I don't know, man. His family tree's really messed up. And while confronting the evil overlord, Black Doom literally uses mind control to stop Shadow in his tracks. But Shadow gets up. This act of defiance shows that he will no longer be held captive by his past. The two eventually duke it out DBZ style, with Shadow defeating Black Doom. The world is saved once again by Shadow the Hedgehog.
Put the past behind me. Chaos Control!
With Black Doom defeated and his comet destroyed, our heroes on Earth celebrate Shadow's victory. However, the final scene of the game reveals a more somber tone. Whether the intention of this moment was planned or just serendipitous, this scene is an amazing depiction of Shadow's newfound independence.
Goodbye forever, Shadow the Hedgehog.
In Sonic Adventure 2, Maria's farewell was Shadow's first goodbye. Her wish his purpose, her voice his conscience. But this time, it's Shadow bidding Maria farewell. And not only her or the doctor, but ultimately himself. With a picture of Maria and Dr. Gerald in his hand, Shadow tosses the photograph aside, letting go of his past. On the Ark, his birthplace, a new Shadow emerges, the one that has always been there, but has been caged by fate's voice. This Shadow is ready to embark on a new adventure, a journey where he will forge his own path and be guided by his own voice. The Shadow the Hedgehog video game and its finale bolsters my current philosophical view of Shadow. In my opinion, nothing encapsulates Shadow's character and philosophy better than Nietzsche. Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche was known as the philosopher with the hammer. He earned this title through his incredible skill of being able to break down well-established philosophies, worldviews, and religions. In Nietzsche's famous book, Beyond Good and Evil, the philosopher goes over our need to move past the binary view of good and evil. To Nietzsche, right and wrong is really just a culture's opinion of how a person should behave, rather than it being some kind of axiomatic truth we should all follow. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I tried reading the book for myself, and I nearly had a stroke trying to understand what I just read. But this book, among his other works, is regarded by many as crucial to understanding Western philosophy and modernity. So if you want to check out the book for yourself, which I highly recommend, the link to that will be in the description below.
Yes, dear.
To Nietzsche, human existence is less of a matter of doing what's right or wrong. It's about pursuing and achieving excellence. Excellence, above all, is the goal humanity should strive toward. Society wants to pull people into mediocrity with its moral codes.
It's not about whether we should do it or not. It's about whether we can do it or not.
Nietzsche urges us to rise above the norm and become something greater, to become what he calls the Overman, or the Übermensch. And Shadow the Hedgehog is this Übermensch. It sounds crazy, but trust me, it'll all make sense. Hopefully. In Nietzsche's philosophy, the Übermensch is the grounded ideal humanity should strive toward. To the philosopher, religion, especially Christianity, had dulled the human spirit. The church has distracted the masses from reality by promising them an afterlife in heaven. The Übermensch rejects this otherworldly thinking. He embraces the present reality of life fully, with all its joys and dangers. Instead of abiding by the moral standards of the herd, or in Gen Z terms, the normies, the Übermensch creates his own values to live by. These values serve the Übermensch's pursuit of self-actualization, of excellence. The Übermensch recognizes that to live is to contend with life. He's willing to confront and overcome the barriers within himself and the world in order to achieve his own goals. It's generally agreed upon that Nietzsche defined this ability to overcome life's obstacles as the will to power. It's in fully expressing this will to power that the Übermensch is able to combat nihilism and give his own life meaning. Shadow's main theme song in Sonic Adventure 2 shows us how he applies the will to power in his own life. Just listen to the lyrics.
Everybody tries to be straight, but things are still unchanged. Head straight for your will like enemies. There is a door that you never open. There is a window with a view you've never seen. Get there no matter how long it takes.
Shadow is willing to subdue anyone and anything that gets in the way of his goals. And it's in this pursuit of excellence he'll find his untapped potential. This journey of overcoming is a long road for him, but he understands that by continually pushing himself, he'll reach a new height of greatness that few will ever see. In the song All Hail Shadow, we see how Shadow views himself as someone to be worshipped. Besides being a self-gratifying title, the verb hail identifies Shadow as some kind of king. Someone of this status is known to have power and rulership. He's described as a sort of higher being, an Übermensch. And that's just the title, guys. Check out some of these lyrics.
Suffer long and it will set you free. Only through trial do we find the strength we need. White is black and black is white. Right is wrong and wrong is right. Determination of the strong. Found the meaning that you searched for so long.
In typical Übermensch fashion, Shadow believes that it is only through embracing suffering can we be truly free and find strength. It is only through the will of the strong can there be meaning in life. Like Nietzsche, Shadow doesn't believe in society's binary definition of good and evil.
He has no rules, no boundaries. He doesn't flinch at torture, human trafficking, or genocide. He's not loyal to a flag or a country or any set of ideals.
The dude is literally called the ultimate life form, an immortal being constructed by man, but an ideal that man also hopes to obtain. Kinda like how Nietzsche hopes for humanity to become the Übermensch. This is what Shadow is, or at least what he hopes to become. With all that being said, I don't want you guys thinking that this video is supporting Nietzsche's philosophy. There are definitely some great takeaways, but in my opinion, there are flaws in his worldview. His criticism of Christianity makes some valid points, but as a Christian myself, I obviously disagree with some of his claims. And yeah, it can sound epic and cool to live life by your own rules, but it's dangerous. For most people, being the Übermensch is a sad attempt at fulfilling a power fantasy, rather than it being an obtainable reality. And despite Shadow being the ultimate life form, his own pride and ego is his biggest weakness. He's blinded by his own power, and often finds himself playing into someone else's hand. All I have to say is, go read Dostoevsky's novel Crime and Punishment, and you'll see the dangers of living life by your own rules.
Yes, dear.
Now, I know some of you guys watching this video are like, is your brain a frog? Because the leaps of logic you made is something to be admired. Yeah, fair enough. And if ChatGPT is any indication, the whole premise of trying to fit Shadow into a Nietzschean box is fun, but misleading. Defining Shadow is difficult because it seems that Sega doesn't even know how to do it. With each game entry following Sonic Adventure 2, it seems that Shadow falls further away from what made him great. For example, in Sonic 06, Shadow, out of all people, is now working for Gun, the guys that killed Maria. Really? Shadow's potential, among the rest of the Sonic cast, has been squandered for a very long time. He's been reduced to an edgy stereotype that lacks direction, and fails to live up to the amazing potential of what he could be, of what he should be. The character is a shadow of his former self. But in a meta sort of way, the mischaracterization of Shadow can actually give us greater insight into who he is. Or maybe I'm coping, I don't know. In the end, at the root of his character, Shadow will fight for what he believes in. Whether he's an experiment gone wrong, a hero, a villain, good or evil. In the end, it doesn't matter. He will always stay true to himself. He will always be Shadow the Hedgehog.
It's futile. The world will betray you. Why fight at all? Why risk your life for those who will persecute you later?
If the world chooses to become my enemy, I will fight like I always have.
So what do you guys think of my analysis of Shadow? Have I totally misunderstood the philosophical concepts in this video? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to continue the conversation. Trust me, there was a lot more to unpack with Shadow, and I only touched the surface with my analysis. So if you want to see more videos like this, give this video a like. It helps support the channel and lets me know you guys are interested. Subscribe and hit that bell icon if you want to be notified of when my next video comes out. Thank you guys again for watching. Until next time, peace out.